Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the 10 Octanes which I really can't wait to be in ASA. In at number 10 is the Gasbags, and this creature is one of those creatures which I really miss in ASA, and obviously it is not going to come into the game until Extinction releases, and that kind of goes for most creatures on this list. They are just on other maps, they aren't the kind of creatures which are coming to ASA anyway, as I haven't really tried them out yet, so I don't really have any opinions on them. But in terms of the Gasbags, this creature is an insanely great method of travel. There is barely any other art creature which can travel as efficiently as the Gasbags, and I have done a little bit of practice on it nowadays compared to when I was using it in this B-roll here. So this B-roll was, I think, a couple of months ago now, but either way, when I was recording this B-roll, I was not the greatest flyer of the Gasbags, and I still won't say that I am the greatest flyer of this thing, but I have somewhat improved slightly, and there is actually a very big learning curve when actually learning to fly these things. But when you learn to fly one, and considering the fact that they don't even need a saddle for you to fly them, they are a really easy and convenient flyer, especially considering their weight as well, making them really good for any kind of metal gathering. And metal is a very essential resource, so it makes sense why this thing is so useful. Next up, we have the Stalker, and again, this is going to be a creature which is going to take a while to get into ASA, as obviously Gen 1 is one of the later maps which was introduced to Arc, and obviously before that Scorched Earth is going to come, then Operation, then Extinction, and then Gen 1. But at least it isn't a Gen 2 creature, so the wait isn't going to be the absolute longest out there. In terms of the Bloodstalker's abilities though, and why I really love this creature, is actually mainly to do with how it does underwater, as I'm still not the best at controlling the Bloodstalker in terms of travelling around the map. A traditional flyer will do a lot better for me, and something like the Snow Owl I'll get by a lot better with. But I still can somewhat control this thing, and I have been doing a little bit more practice after I recorded this B-roll, as when I was editing through all of this, I kind of realised how abysmal my controlling of this creature is. But my only claim to fame with this thing is I have done the Alpha Bulk Race mission, so I must be at least good enough for doing that, although I'm definitely not in my Bloodstalker Flying Prime anymore. In terms of their taming method, essentially what you'll do is you'll extract blood from your body, or you can obviously use a Desmodus to farm that blood, and then you'll tame yourself a Bloodstalker as they'll grapple onto you, and they'll just suck the blood bags out of your inventory. A really cool taming method, and the fact that this is a really great creature for underwater exploration, it deals a lot of damage, and it's a really fast travel mount. It really does need to be in ASA, and I can't wait for it to be. Continuing the Extinction trend, we have the Snow Owl, and this creature is again one of those creatures which I really miss in ASA. The Snow Owl is just so useful for so many things, and it actually really does make you realise how useful these creatures are when they are obviously taken away from you, as ASA only has the island right now. And obviously the Snow Owl, like the Gasbags, does spawn on Extinction, so it is going to be a while until we actually see this in the game, but I really can't wait, as the Snow Owl has a wealth of abilities, namely that gliding ability, which it obviously shares with things like the Griffin and the Desmodus, a very cool and smooth ability, but it also has a wealth of others as well. This isn't its main kind of feature really. It does have some other features, like its kind of heat seeking ability almost, which is great for PvP, as you know, if a person is just trying to hide in a bush somewhere and get away from you, you can easily spot them with this thing, and then you can dispose of them as you wish. But also, you are going to want to level up stamina on these things like absolute crazy, not just so you can fly longer distances, because their stamina drain is actually very decent, but because if you level up their stamina, they can heal up creatures for longer, and this is really their kind of main ability. There's not really any other ability which I use more than this, and it's essentially the Daedon on just loads and loads of steroids, and you really do have to use this thing to actually know what it feels like using this thing, as it is a creature which you will definitely not regret taming. And also its owl pellets are great for use on gachas too. Next up we have the Mantis, and this creature is just one of those things which I really want in the game, and luckily it is on Scorched Earth originally, so this thing will be coming to ASA pretty soon. Not actually sure when the release date of ASA Scorched Earth is supposed to be, but it is definitely a lot sooner than Extinction, as Extinction is 2 maps ahead on from Scorched Earth. And when Raasclark comes out on ASA as well, these things will also be there. Actually, I'm not really sure about custom map dates yet. I don't even know if Wildcard has given us anything for it. But hopefully they do release these maps, as I think they are anyway. That's not really something which I should question. But yes, those maps should be releasing. So yes, it should. Oh, I don't know. That was a really weird train of thought. Either way, with Scorched Earth, when Scorched Earth comes out on ASA, you'll be able to tame the Mantis. Obviously, it is a little bit of a slog sometimes, due to obviously you having to get the Death Bomb horns and the bug repellent and wear ghillie. But once tamed, you have yourself an absolute harvesting god of a creature, which at this point when playing through ASA, I really miss. Now, the Mwing really does have to be mentioned on this list, and it is going to be a long while before this thing obviously comes into ASA, as this is a Gen 2 creature, and Gen 2 is currently the latest DLC map which Wildcard has released, so it's right at the end of the release dates of which Wildcard had announced, but still it could even be delayed further. As you know, it is Arc, and ASA really isn't in a great state right now, so they may delay the other maps back more to somewhat get them out optimized, but I doubt Snail Games is really going to agree with that, and we might just end up with more of a buggy mess for all of the other Arc DLCs to come. Hopefully not, and I really do hope that ASA does make some drastic improvements over the coming year, as in a year's time this could actually be a really nicely optimized game which actually somewhat runs on hardware which most people own. But in terms of the Mwing's abilities, this is pretty much the fastest travel mount, which is why I miss it. There isn't really anything comparable, especially since speed is gone. They're also really great for obviously raising creatures, as they're essentially a portable feeding trough, and then gather berries too, which is just a nice little bonus. Now, the Reaper isn't too long around the corner in terms of ASA, as Arbration is the map just after Scorched Earth. This will obviously, I think it must be into next year when this is coming out. Not sure when Scorched Earth is going to release. I don't know if it's next year or this year. Honestly, I don't really care too much at the moment, as the only thing I care about with ASA really at the moment is the optimization of the game and actually making it run better for some people. And I know I'm very lucky, as I have a somewhat decent graphics card, me having a 2060 Super, which is a lot better than most people in the general population have. And also, I know ASA is kind of releasing on Xbox now. I think it got delayed, or is it? No, it must have been released now. ASA is on Xbox, and sadly it isn't on PlayStation yet, so I really don't know when it is actually going to come out for Scorched Earth. But either way, to stop talking about ASA, we need to talk about the Reaper. This thing deals an insane amount of damage, has a really cool taming method which can't be missed really, and again it is quite similar to the Rhinogonatha's taming method, but in some ways, actually in pretty much every other way that it can be, it is cooler, and it just deals a heck of a lot of damage, and it's just such a powerful buff creature which is such a joy and journey to tame, and I can't wait for this thing to be introduced to ASA. Now, the Vonaur is just one of those creatures which, again, it does spawn on Extinction. Seems like there's an awful lot of Extinction creatures on this list. Don't worry, none of the creatures after this are on Extinction, but considering that I'm replaying through Extinction at the moment, and I've just fell in love with this creature, I have to put it on this list, as every time I play ASA, I'm just always craving the use of this dino. The fact of that it is a literal portable turret is just so cool to me, and no other creature can really do that. Yes, the Chalicotherium kind of works as a turret as well, but this is a significantly better turret, and although sadly its damage of the turret doesn't scale with melee, you can always just pump some more stamina into it, and then boom, that turret can fire for a really long amount of time. And obviously I wouldn't recommend using it at this range, but over long range it is one of the most OP abilities you'll find. Also, considering how easy their taming method is, and also how inexpensive their saddle is, and how great this creature is, I really can't wait for this thing to be an ASA when I can experience this thing in the all new UE5 version of Ark. Now, the Deinonychus has been sorely missed, in my opinion. This is pretty much my go-to boss creature, really, as the fact that they can inflict bleed damage on bosses is one of the most OP things, and I'm pretty sure still to this day no other Ark creature shares that ability, which feels absolutely insane to me, but I'm still glad that the Deinonychus has it. And obviously when Valguero drops on ASA, we will have the Deinonychus again to play with the new and updated graphics. The model's probably not going to change, but you know, at least we'll have Valguero ASA style, and I think it will actually work quite well with the way that ASA looks. And obviously in terms of their other abilities, apart from just dealing insane bleed damage, you may have also seen there with their other kind of bleed ability, they can grapple onto large creatures. They also have the pack buff too, which is an insanely great ability to have, and just the more of them they have, you just have an even more buff creature. I think it's packs of 3 and then you get the pack buff. Adding more to the pack obviously won't increase the pack buff, but it will still increase the amount of damage you can produce as you'll have more creatures there. Also, these things won't take full damage as well, which is a nice little neat ability to have, and they can jump up walls too, so there really is nothing wrong with this creature in any way, and I really want these things in ASA as soon as possible. In at number 2 is the Crystal Wyvern, and this creature, in my opinion, I just can't wait for this thing to be back, and I feel like I'm a broken record just saying that every single time, but I really can't, as this is just so much better than a normal wyvern in my opinion. Not because it is necessarily a better creature once tamed, but because its taming method is so ridiculously easy and simple that this creature becomes so much more elevated in terms of its actual use as a creature. You can get this much earlier on and with literal minimal effort. The only real downside being that level 65 requirement, which is why this thing obviously isn't in at number 1. If that wasn't there, it would be in number 1 though. And a note run isn't too difficult to do and isn't too much of an inconvenience, and you can easily do it within an hour, and within your first maybe couple of hours at most in Ark. If not within your first hour, if you're really quick at doing note runs, you can very easily passive tame one of these things. And if you are doing that, go for a Blood Crystal Wyvern. They are better. It's like with normal Wyverns. Go for a Lightning Wyvern. There are better ones out there. The Blood Crystal Wyvern is definitely the preferred one. This isn't a Blood Crystal Wyvern in this B-roll, but you can definitely tell the difference between the two. And in at number 1 is the Desmodus. And this creature is probably right now in normal Ark like the best creature out there. In terms of when this thing is tamed, its Sanguine Elixir is an absolute cheese for taming any kind of Ark creature, which is insane, especially for official players. Obviously, I'm not an official Ark player, not as in I don't play Ark, and all of these videos are scams, but official servers are like just base rates if you didn't know that already, but I'm sure most of you do. And for official players out there who play on Ark, that rate is an absolutely insane thing. Having 30% of the tame done for you from the get-go is an absolute godsend, and it still is to single players and just players on unofficial servers too. And in terms of their abilities, apart from that, they obviously have the glide ability. They can also have night vision, which doesn't work on extinction, as the wasteland is always day. And also these things can harvest blood bags from creatures, which before this thing came out wasn't possible. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I really hope that you all enjoyed this one. And comment down below your Ark creatures which you really can't wait to see in ASA, and I'll see you later.